Dun, 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 dun. And we are live, everyone, for a new and special early episode of the Electrek podcast. I am Fred Lambert, your host. And as usual, I'm joined by Seth Wintraub. How are you doing this fine morning, Seth?
I'm good.
As per usual. That's what I like to hear. All right. So we're having a little early show this week because I need to be on the road this afternoon. A little bit of a road trip. But anyway, it was kind of a slow news week anyway because I think I would assume the holiday in the middle of the week kind of slowing down, and I would also assume that the heat just slowed everybody down. There was not a lot of news coming out this week, but we still, we're Electrek. If there is any news out there, we'll find it, and we found some as usual. So we're gonna have quite a little bit to talk about. And then at the end of the show, we gonna get you guys questions. So if you guys have questions, you can put it in the comment section right now. We're gonna get to it in about like 40 minutes or so. And I want to start out also by saying a quick shout out to the Electrek American Solar Challenge 2024 coming out in just a few weeks. We're gonna have a little bit more to say about that later on in the show, so stay tuned for that. But we would like to see you come and encourage these cool student teams that are making fun solar electric cars. All right. We're going to start with quite the good news this week. The Tesla Model 3 long range has officially been eligible to the full $7,500 federal tax credit for electric vehicle, or tax credit or point of sale incentive. Now you can get it directly. So this is pretty big because with the refresh of the Model 3, the new long range version didn't come with the tax credit. We assume that it has something to do with the new requirements for battery sourcing, both component and critical materials. Most likely, things coming from China. It made things interesting because with the recent launch of the Model 3 Performance on the new Highland refresh, it made more sense if you were eligible to the tax credit, or if you go for a lease rather than buying. It made more sense to buy the performance version than the long range because of that. Like the $7,500 difference made it so that performance was cheaper than the long range. So probably cradled this. Well, I shouldn't say that. It probably didn't affect it that much because I don't know exactly what percentage of people are eligible. The eligibility criteria are on the vehicle itself, but also on the buyer, which is income $150,000 per year. But that is if you're a single filer. If you're a joint filer, it's 300,000. So, I think a lot of people probably fall into that can afford a Model 3. But now the performance version started at $47,500. So with that $7,500 tax credit, it literally is a $40,000 vehicle. So really not a bad vehicle for $40,000. Again, Tesla doesn't really discuss these changes, like what happened to enable the fact that you have access to the tax credit now. But again, my assumption is that this was using a battery coming from China. Now it's using a battery coming from the US. Maybe it's going back to the Panasonic cells from Nevada. Not sure.
I mean, that's obviously kind of a big deal if they're making a ton of batteries in the US that were previously made in China. Why wouldn't Tesla be more transparent about this? Like, it seems like that's something that they could kind of hang their hat on.
Yeah, they've been very opaque with everything when it comes to batteries for a while now. You remember that transition of like not even talking about the energy capacity of the battery pack, now focusing only on range. We've seen other automakers go the same route too. There's just not people want to focus too much on that. I get the argument to a certain degree, but and also battery sourcing. I'm sure most people don't care about it. But yeah, it is interesting, especially is it using LFP? Is it using NCA, NCM? It's all interesting stuff that some of the nerdiest Tesla buyer would like to know.
I guess we're the nerdy ones, right?
Yeah. In the less so good news surrounding the Tesla, we learned about that last weekend. Tesla Cybertruck had the delivery halt, and of all things that making it halt deliveries, it's this giant windshield wiper. Apparently, that's a problem. So last weekend, we got a bunch of reports from the owners clubs, the Cybertruck owners club, from a bunch of people that were about to take delivery of the Cybertruck, being told that they had to delay the delivery because there was halt on sales, and not everyone was being told exactly what was going on. But at the same time, a bunch of people with Cybertrucks in service were being told that they needed to replace the wiper motor. There was being happily a defect on it, and some even were being told by Tesla employees that Tesla might need to replace all of them, about just over like 5,000 or so. In my recent review, the Cybertruck, I had some issues with the windshield wiper. I chalked it up to just the auto wiper system sucking on the Cybertruck and on Tesla vehicle in general. It's a running gag at this point, just how bad the wipers are. Just yesterday on my Model 3, I was driving back from Trois-Rivières. It was beautiful, blue sky, and then my windshield wiper was like, "Oh, the sun is up!" Like, all right, you don't need to wipe for the sun, dumbass. But with the Cybertruck, there was a few of that happening, but I did notice a weird issue that I couldn't really. Now that I look back at it, it doesn't make sense to attribute it to the actual auto wiper system, is because sometimes it would just go down. The resting position for the Cybertruck, as you can see on this picture, for the Cybertruck's wiper is up, because there's one giant wiper that sits like that because there's no crease in the middle between the hood and the windshield to hide it. So this is the resting position, and sometimes it will just decide to go down and just stay there.
That's not good aerodynamically.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cell. Literally, it's like putting down a cell. Shoot, you hit the brakes, parachute.
Maybe that's the idea. Is like it's an extra braking mechanism for.
Yeah, it's like autopilot. So it's not even autopilot on the Cybertruck, but they detected I was going too fast. It's like, we need to slow that kid down. So,
yeah.
So maybe there was that. I cannot tell, but apparently there's some issues. There's some people that took deliveries in the last few weeks too that said that the wipers just wasn't working at all the week. So it looks like there's a serious problem with the motor on the windshield wiper.
I mean, there's two separate issues. One is like, that's a huge wiper, and it's obviously going to have a motor that's bigger than any wiper motor that's ever existed, right? I mean, so they're probably running into torque problems or something. But then there's the other problem of the the auto wipers that have never been great in Tesla's area. Like Tesla does a lot of things great. Windshield wipers, not one of them.
Yeah, it might also have contributed the auto wiper issue. Like, they might have attributed issues with the wiper to the auto wiper system, when in fact it was the motor all along. Like that might have hidden the issue. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, but you're right. Like, Tesla couldn't go with like a off-the-shelf like motor here. This thing is gigantic. Elon Musk sent out an email to employees this week telling them that they're gonna get some new stock options. Weird timing, but interesting nonetheless. So this was one of the things that I was kind of disappointed about the shareholders with this whole like proxy battle for Elon's stock compensation, because we reported on that earlier this year, but Tesla did cancel the stock options for employees at the end of last year, early this year. They cancel pay upgrades, they cancel compensation plans with stock options. And then the judge rescinded Elon's own stock option, which you could argue that's the same thing that he did to his own employees.
That's right.
And the shareholders fought like hell to give him back. And they didn't do the same for the Tesla employees, which, they contribute just as much, if not a lot more, than Elon Musk as a whole. I would, actually, it's not arguable. They definitely contribute a lot more than Elon as a whole.
In raw hours, man hours, yeah. I would put them at a little bit more.
And in direct contribution to the company too. Like, I mean, even if Elon is the single biggest contribution to the company, which I think is arguable, they contribute a lot more as a whole, obviously. And they didn't get any stock option last year. So now Elon sent out an email this week to the employees saying, over the next few weeks, Tesla will be doing a comprehensive review to provide stock option grants for exceptional performance. There will also be an ongoing program to award spot option grants for anyone who does something outstanding for the company. Thanks for everything you're doing to make Tesla successful. So it's not everyone that's going to get the stock option back. It's apparently only top performers. And then separately, there's going to be a spot option grant program for outstanding things that people do in the company. The first part, obviously top performers should get stock option. I'm not denying that, but they took away everyone's stock option last year and they gave it to Elon. Like, so I just like, I think everyone should, if Elon, some. Yeah, and then so if Elon is getting a stock option, I think all Tesla employees should. But I do like the second thing though, like special spot options directly for someone does like something great. Let's say like someone, it's kind of demoralizing someone, like you do something like incredible for a company that just it's gonna save them hundreds of millions of dollars every year going forward, and like you get a little pat on the back or something, like congrats. Right. It's like, yeah, I mean, I'm getting paid like $200,000 a year as an engineer, and like I paid for myself for like lives ahead
right.
For my work at this company. So it would be nice for when you do something like that, like you get, all right, you know what, like here's some stock option, which obviously you become like a part owner of the company if you weren't already, of course, or a bigger part owner of the company, and then your stock's going to benefit from these crazy nice cost cutting effort that you did through engineering effort. I like that stuff. I think that stuff is cool. So kudos for Elon to doing that. Moving on. Elon announced that he's working on the Tesla Master Plan Part 4. If you haven't been keeping up with these, we already at Part 4. So the first two like came early, well, not that early, 2006 and then 2016, I think, the Part 2. Yeah, 2006 Part 1, 2016 Part 2, and then Part 3 was just last year. But Part 3 was very different from Part 1, Part 2. Part 1, Part 2 were more like clear, like product roadmap plans. Like a Part 1, build a sports car, use that money to build an affordable car, use that money to build an even more affordable car, while doing so also provide zero emission electric power generation option. So that was Roadster, Model S and X, Model 3 and Y, Solar City acquisition. Like this basically, like Part 1 is done, even though people have even more affordable car was supposed to be a $35,000 Model 3. I mean, you can basically get one for $35,000 now. So let's put that one complete. Master Plan Part 2 was it was more about justifying. It was in the middle of the acquisition of Solar City, so it built on the number 4 here and try to sell that pretty hard. Talk about Solar Roof, which is still not the greatest Tesla product out there. It's a great product. It just hasn't been as impactful as it was sold to us.
Yeah, it's not really scalable either. Like it doesn't seem like they're making any money on it.
Yeah, it hasn't definitely scaled the way we thought it would. Expanded vehicle lineup, product line to address all major segments. This is not quite done yet. Develop a self-driving capability that is 10x safer than manual via massive fleet learning. Hasn't been done just yet. Hasn't been completed. Enable your car to make you money when that is completely dependent on 3, so not worth that much. But yeah, so in that 2 expanding the lineup, Elon mentioned a new kind of pickup truck. So the Cybertruck, okay, it's been delivered. Compact SUV has been the Model Y, incredible success. Heavy truck, so that's been the Tesla Semi, hasn't ramped up to volume production yet, but apparently going next year. Pretty confident it will. And then a high passenger density urban transport vehicle. This is the one that's completely missing from the whole thing. Hasn't been there. So Part 2 hasn't been completed at all. We got Part 3, but Part 3 was more of like, it was a presentation last year, and then a white paper came, and it was more about doing the math on how you scale EVs and energy storage and solar and wind to achieve a sustainable economy. Like Tesla actually like went down and did the math, which was really cool. And they just showed it was possible, and they show that Tesla is going to have a big impact there through things like a $25,000 vehicle that has been canceled, through a supercharger development that's going to increase and has been slowed down. Part 3 of the plan is also far from done. And then Elon now announced this week that it's going to be a Part 4 and it's going to be epic. So there's obviously, maybe a bit of lack of credibility going on. I think a little bit of rushing to Plan 4 because of everything that he said at the shareholders meeting last week. Things about Tesla being most valuable company in the world, focus on AI, focus on humanoid robots. I think now he's going to have to include that in the master plan. The robots were never really in that 1, 2, 3. So I think he's trying to he made all these grand announcements, and now he's trying to actually build a plan to make this happen after the fact, which is kind of weird. Let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a snake oil salesman type of things to me, at least. Even though these things are real, I think that I'm bullish on the robots. I'm bullish on the robots. I'm getting increasingly thinking that Tesla is going to achieve self-driving in at least hardware 4 or 5 in the next few years. But so that's the weird thing about Tesla. Like, you criticize it for clear like pumps. Let's call it's a pump. A lot of what Elon does is pumping. Okay. Yep. This is pumping, but at the same time they're doing some incredible things. It's just the incredible things never quite match just all grandiose Elon's announced anything. Like, so you can, and I know it's hard in this cult of personality stuff and everything, but there's a way I think that you can exist where you can both appreciate all the great things that Tesla does and acknowledge the fact that Elon sometimes is just straight up pumping, and there's a discrepancy between what he says and what is actually planned. Not even what's delivered, what is actually like in the works at Tesla.
I feel like that's our whole shtick. Is like,
that's why we exist.
This is great. This is crazy. This is and kind of cutting through like the hype and what's real and what's good. I wanted to jump back. You're bullish on the Tesla bots. Do you think that a general purpose robot is the way to go for like automation? I kind of feel like we've been going robots for building cars for a long time now. The big, even Tesla has hyped their, what do they call it, the dreadnought or something?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like building a whole humanoid robot to do like, screwing in a thing or whatever. I feel like, why aren't there purpose-built robots for those things? I get why a humanoid robot would make sense for, a lot of stuff, like, a maid for your house or, whatever. But it just, to me, it seems like for specific tasks in automation of a car factory, like why build humanoid robots? Why not build perfect or
there's I get your question. But there's a bunch of different layers that, like you said, there is like also it can be useful for completely other things outside of industrial application. So
right.
there's you leverage all the work you do for that. Obviously, I think the value is going to be mainly there first. But the big thing is like people, I think, underestimate just how capital intensive and resource intensive it is to onboard a new purpose-built robot. So you have to like include that in your production line design. It has to be specific to a very narrow purpose of like you said, like screwing this specifically screw or whatever. The thing is like we already have. And we already have processes to onboard humans in a bunch of these, stations in industrial level. So the idea is that if you could make a useful humanoid robot that is learned, much like a human learns,
right,
then you can just use all your existing human onboarding systems and just put that robot in there that is so much cheaper than a human to operate.
Right.
So this is this giant onboarding cost that you eliminate that is billions and billions and billions of dollars worldwide that you just take off right away if you can make that robot. And so I think there's a ton of value in that. It's just you needed to have both a humanoid robot that where the robotics are at a level high enough that you can replace a lot of skilled or even at first unskilled, and then even starting to work up some skilled human, and then the AI behind it, the software, both of them needed to be at a certain level. And I think we're just now reaching at the same time. The robotics have increased a lot in the last few years. I think the AI was a bit behind, and now the AI is like catching up and surpassing robotics. So we're reaching that threshold now, I think, where you can have a useful human with robots. And then, as soon as you have that, then you can just start chipping away at all the jobs. So I think there's a real usefulness to this that people are kind of underestimating a bit. So we're gonna be expecting now any day master, maybe not any day, because Elon announced like early last year that master plan part 3 was coming, and then it took quite a few months before it actually came. So I don't know exactly when part 4 is gonna come.
And what do we think is going to be in that one?
AI robots.
AI robots.
AI and robots.
And unrealistic timeframes?
Time frames were not too much into the other plans, to be honest. True. Like Elon was, that's putting it black on white, like on paper. Like
I'm sure his lawyers are like, do not put a time frame on any of this.
Elon, you have to give him credit for that. He's pretty good. Like if you listen to the actual language he used, like normally he's gonna insert in there like, this is my guess, like this is right. I'm just it's just a complete estimation. It's just my prediction. Like he's good at putting those things in. Really,
I would also say that that's very it's like Donald Trump. For some reason Donald Trump says all these things that are hey, let's insurrect.
I've heard this. Like, people told me.
yeah. And it's always like, but isn't that? No, it's not. Okay.
It's such a cop out. Like people, I always attack journalists. Like sources said, like, oh yeah, right. Sources said everything. It's like, yeah. I mean, this is a lot worse in my opinion. But anyway. All right. Elon also talked a little bit about the new AI supercluster coming to Gigafactory, Texas. So we reported on this earlier this year, like amid all the, the layoffs, and then just before the layoffs, Elon came in like a wrecking ball, and like he canceled some programs and put the resources back on this. So I reported that Tesla was having a little bit of issues completing that south expansion at the Gigafactory, Texas, and that's when he killed the Model 2 project. NV91 and NV92, the 2 new vehicles that were on the on-box platform, but the cheaper vehicles, and not the 2 that were not the robotaxi, let's say that. And they diverted those resources to completing the expansion for the supercluster, AI supercluster, to train self-driving that's coming to Gigafactory, Texas. And at that time, we heard that it was a 100-megawatt cluster. They were calling it the Dojo project, but we were hearing that it was going to use NVIDIA hardware, so we're a little bit confused about that. And Elon actually clarified a lot of things there. First of all, he said 130 megawatts of power and cooling, so probably 100 megawatts of actually power, like 30 megawatts cooling, something like that. Would make sense, would be in line with what we heard. But he said that it will increase to over 500 megawatts in the next 18 months or so, which is pretty wild.
That is wild.
And then he said that aiming for about half Tesla AI hardware, half NVIDIA and others. So that clarified what we heard. That's why he said Dojo. But at the same time, there's Dojo, but it's not just going to be Dojo. He said that the Tesla hardware is going to be mostly hardware 4. So Tesla is using now its inference computing, the onboard computing in car, as also training compute, which is interesting. And might point to some problem with Dojo, by the way. Like we've heard some issues with Dojo. Tesla fired 2 of the top executives on the Dojo program. So when it makes sense that balance, I think they're the same guys that also design hardware for it, to be honest. So it's not like it's they did a bad job with Dojo, but they did such a good job on hardware 4 that we were both using for in-car on-board inference computing and also training. And he said that the AI 5, which is what they are going to rename the hardware 5, that's going to be the new in-car hardware, is going to have 10x the capability of hardware 4. Elon at the meeting last week said that Tesla has NVIDIA level even surpassing NVIDIA level chip design. So he's putting some kind of a number on it now. But yeah, this is a cluster that has been delayed and is at the center of this issue with Elon diverting NVIDIA hardware to X and XAI that was supposed to come to Tesla, which people say, yeah, but Tesla was not ready. Okay, yeah, it was not ready, but why was it not ready? And X and XAI were ready for it. Like that's the big question there. And now what we are hearing is that Elon says it's going to be ready soon. We heard that they're now aiming for August. We've seen some images, drone flyovers. Like Elon commented on this, by the way, because of new drone flyovers. Like it looks like Tesla is building like a giant GPU at the cluster. Like you have like giant fans.
Yeah.
That look just like a GPU fan. So that's basically it. Tesla is building a 130 megawatt, eventually 500 megawatt GPU system. But you know what? This, as crazy as it sounds, and like I know, like now the Elon fan are gonna go down on me like pretty hard for this, but this is actually a bearish look for me on the self-driving, because just a few months ago, Elon said that Tesla was not compute constrained for training self-driving. And now he's talking about having 130, 500 megawatts of compute training. And what that tells me is that Elon doesn't really know what it will take to get to self-driving. That's what it's telling me. Because like a few months ago, he said, not compute constrained. Now he's saying we're adding more compute power than anyone in the world at this point. So, and to be fair, I don't think anyone really knows what it's going to take to actually solve self-driving. So it's not like I'm, digging Elon on this. Like you should know. But of course, you should know if you're claiming that you're going to achieve it by the end of the year, every year for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Again, this is the weird line to like Tesla is trying to do something absolutely incredible, and I commend them for that. They've made incredible progress towards it. I don't think they are quite as close as Elon claims to be, but it is problematic when you're using statements like we're going to achieve it by the end of the year to sell cars when you don't actually know what it's going to take to get there. I cannot blame you for not knowing, but I can blame you for claiming that you're close to it when you don't know. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Oh yeah, we got a new list of the most American-made cars out there, and the Tesla Model Y is still on top of the list. Though the list had a big shakeup in the top 10, because last year, if you remember, said Tesla had number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4.
Yep.
Then after that, the others were coming out, especially Honda. Honda is in Alabama and Lincoln, they're making they're pretty well vertically integrated, and they are doing cars that are sourced locally. But now the Model Y in Fremont and Austin comes first. Honda Passport second. Volkswagen ID4 has been climbing the list over the last few years. Now it's at the top 3 with the ID4 made in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And then Tesla has 2 vehicles, only 1 or 2 vehicles in the top 4. Model S is still in the top 4. But the Model X has number 9, which, I'm not sure why exactly. I would assume because the others have climbed up, because Model X hasn't changed that much in the last few years. It's the Model 3 that taken the big, falling off the top. It's now fallen to 21. And so this is car.com's that makes these ranking. And they said that the Model 3 landing at number 1 is due to changes in workforce and domestic part content, respectively. I don't know how workforce plays into that. Like if they fired a lot of people, but the car is still made at the same place, it's still being sourced in the same place, but domestic part content has fallen. So obviously this is where I think makes the most sense. Tesla has increasingly used more Chinese batteries in the car. I think that's where the bigger impact is. The Cybertruck also made the top of the pickup trucks, but Cybertruck is like tougher to gauge because all the pickups are, I think, vehicle over 6,000 pounds. They don't have the same requirements for listing the sourcing of, so they don't have the same amount of info for it. So, oh yeah, for our last Tesla stuff, I wanted to end with this because I thought it was an interesting idea that I think we should promote. It's Martin Viecha, Tesla's exiting head of investor relations. I think last week was his last week at Tesla. He said he was leaving after he spent almost a decade at the company, if I remember correctly. And he was active this week on X, despite leaving Tesla. And he said that personally, I've always been pro advertising. 1% of the revenue spent on ads, both digital and TV, would, I think, be margin accretive and mission accretive. I don't know if he's just saying that now. He's saying that he was like promoting that within the company before, but I do like this idea because 1% of Tesla's revenue is roughly $200 million a quarter, $250 million a quarter, like $1 billion a year in advertising spend. Like you can do a lot with that, and you could do a lot like of direct advertising for Tesla. Obviously, like just I think a lot of people don't know that you can get in a Tesla for $299 a month. Model 3 standard range lease. It's $200 a month. You can get into a Tesla, start saving on gas. Depending on how much you drive, it's probably like at the very least $100 a month or so that you're gonna save in gas savings. So it's starting to get a $200 a month vehicle. There's a lot of value in that. I think Tesla could push that more, but I think Tesla could also have a giant impact if they sort of split that budget into direct advertising for Tesla budget, but also like half of that budget going for advertising for just general EV education. I think that would play into Tesla's mission a lot, obviously, to accelerate the advent of electric transport. It would inform the public a lot more about the advantage of electric vehicles, the advantage for your consumer, but also for the environment and all that, just to dispel some of the EV myths. And obviously, Tesla is going to be the one that's going to benefit the most from that anyway, because it's the biggest EV brand out there. So some, broader EV education is going to benefit the entire market, but Tesla is most of the market in the US still, so it would benefit Tesla. So I think like a giant marketing effort from Tesla, $1 billion budget, half of it direct on Tesla vehicle, other half on EV education, would have a giant impact. I think Elon should really consider that, especially now I think he's warming up to advertising. Tesla has kind of stopped their advertising effort that they launched last year. Elon complained that it was too generic and everything, and I'm not completely, I think he has a point. But now Tesla had a pretty good effort trying to sell the compensation package through advertising. So maybe they should put that team on that and give them that $1 billion budget a year. All right, Seth, do you want to talk a little bit about the American Solar Challenge coming up next week?
Yeah, so
not next week.
Not next week. Yeah. Next month. So we're excited. Obviously, Electrek Solar Challenge is two different events. One is the first event is July 13th through 15th. Is scrutineering, and the actual race is the Electric Formula Sun Grand Prix, July 16th to 18th, and that's in Bowling Green, Kentucky, at the Corvette Museum racetrack. Fun place to go. Anyway, if you're in the area, or your kids or your dad or your spouse wants to go check out solar and electric vehicles, a lot of fun to do. And then that race kind of determines the the pole position of the cross country race, which will start out in Nashville, and that's going to go all the way to Casper, Wyoming. And that's going to take place toward the end of July. We're going to be on hand for some of it, certainly at Nashville. I'm not sure how far along the route we're going to go, maybe all the way to St. Louis. So we are, super excited about this. These are solar cars that are driving on, major streets and highways and stuff.
Is there going to be like police escort and things like that?
No, these are street legal vehicles.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and they go quite fast. I mean, they actually have to kind of scale back the amount of solar they can have on the actual vehicle, because they were starting to go so fast that they were becoming unstable because they're kind of like bikes. They're so efficient that the tires are so small. So it became, they have to constrain that. So anyway, you can see on the show notes, we'll have a link to the solar challenge, and on there you can get the route. We're showing it to those people watching right now. So yeah, if you're in the Midwest in mid to late July, come check it out. It's a lot of fun, a lot of science going on, and these are going to be the engineers of the future who are going to build all the solar and EVs that we're going to enjoy. So come check it out.
Really cool. Really proud that Electrek is sponsoring that stuff. All right, we have a little bit more news to discuss, and then we're going to jump into the comment section. So if you guys have any question for us, you can put it in the comments right now. I see we already have a bunch today. I appreciate you for doing that. And we'll get to it in just a few minutes. All right, we're going to discuss now a sadder thing a little bit. Fisker has officially filed for bankruptcy. So we've been anticipating it for the last few months now, if not few years. We've never been super hyped about Fisker. The Ocean was not a bad project. It was interesting. It was very popular segment too. It kind of the timing was not bad. The vehicle was we didn't review it very well, obviously. Like it was not a bad vehicle. It was just not fully baked in. It needed a little bit more time. A lot more software development. It came to market a little bit too early because it had to. Otherwise, they want to go on there. But we just weren't really taking Fisker very seriously because they unveil like 60 different prototypes over the years. They look like they were, spread a little bit too thin. They should have really focused all their energy on the Ocean, make that a success, and then move on from there because this was what was going to happen, and it's exactly what happened. They announced this week that they are fully filing for Chapter 11, which doesn't always necessarily means the end of everything, but in this case, they are making it clear that they are now looking to just sell their assets, which is worth between $500 million and $1 billion, they say. They talking about continuing some programs in the meantime, but I wouldn't put so much hope on it. If you have an Ocean right now, or considering one of the cheap ones that are for sale out there, just don't expect any service. I think that's the safest route. But what does it mean for the industry, really? That's what people are saying right now, they want to say that it means that others are coming, which is not impossible, honestly. But I think every company, it's its own thing. They have their own management, they have their own balance sheet, and Fisker was never the strongest one out there. There's other ones that are at risk. Lucid losing a lot of money, Rivian losing a lot of money, but they're different companies. Like does not mean because Fisker went under that others went under. It's important to get to positive gross margin, to get to profitability. Like a car company is nothing if they don't make any money off of it, and even if they're making great products, which is the case I think for Lucid and Rivian. Fisker was not making a horrific product. It just was not great. They made about 10,000 of them, but they only sold half of them. So there was not exactly a market for it there. They got over like 70,000 or so reservation. So, they made 10,000, only sold 5,000, but they have over 7,000 reservation. But I think that's where the timing was not great. Like there was, amid all that inflation that happened, the car ended up costing more than originally was supposed to. At $35,000, I think Fisker, does very well with the Ocean. At $50,000+, this is what happens. Yeah. I don't know. Do you have anything to add, Sid?
Yeah. So I am, obviously sad to see an electric vehicle company go under. But I have to say, the strategy there, make a vehicle that kind of goes up against the most popular EV in the world, the Model Y.
Mm-hmm.
people definitely want things that are different. But like, if the software is not working well and, your price is good, but not amazing. And, obviously Fisker wasn't even building these. They were being built. They were being outsourced to what's it? Magna.
Manga.
Yeah. So I don't know. It just like it's, and we've covered Fisker in the past. Obviously, that he has Henrik Fisker has a long history of being in the EV world with, he worked at Tesla for a while before the Model S came out. Claims to have been, behind that a little bit. Then, did the Karma stuff, and then he's not been successful. I mean, we've always enjoyed his designs, but has not been successful spooling up a EV startup. So I don't know. It's one of those things where I hope it doesn't affect the rest of the industry. I hope people don't have, less expectation. That they're not worried about Rivian or Lucid in kind of the same way. I think both of those companies have a better shot, especially Rivian. So I don't know. It's one of those things.
You had a good point.
What's that?
You said like they're going after the Model Y, most popular vehicle out there, and they have all these issues with software and everything. So I think that's a good point, because I think you have to have something that differentiates yourself with everyone else. So if you're going into a market where there's an existing product out there and there's a bunch of existing product, and your product is arguably worse than that, how is it going to work out? Right. So I think this is maybe a lesson for other companies, because I think Rivian, at least, like for example, Rivian, they are in a market now that there's competition. Obviously, when they first announced, they were not any pickup trucks out there, electric pickup trucks, but now there is like SUVs, pickup trucks, but they have a great product, like unarguably, like it's great and it's competitive with everything out there. Same with Lucid. Lucid has its own thing to also like super high efficiency, longer range. They are differentiating themselves within an existing competitive market. If you're an EV startup, you're going out there and you're going in one of those markets with high competition, it's going to be hard, because you're going to have to compete with the big boys in something that they're already great at. As a small startup, it's hard to beat that. So it might be a good idea to go after a market that is not really addressed yet, like especially in the EV space. Like instead of starting with the most popular segment that everyone is competing in, maybe start with, I know I've been saying that for a while, but a little like Miata, like convertibles, lighter electric car, something like that. Like there's nothing like that out there. Like maybe at least so you don't get compared yourself to everything else all the time. And it's hard to beat the Model Y in a crossover segment. There's other things out there that even like Ford is having some issues, like beating. Ford, an established company, is having issues competing with Tesla with a great car that is the Mustang Mach-E. So that a small startup like Fisker could come in and carve itself a place in the market. It was always hard to believe, and I think we've seen the result of that right now. All right, I'm going to talk about a lot of cheaper electric cars after that. First of all, the Volvo EX30. Volvo with everyone is trying to adjust now to all these Chinese tariffs going on, and the EX30 has been one of our main concerns, because it looks like a very potentially impactful vehicle, but coming from China, 100% tariffs now, dead in the water. Volvo is hinting that instead of building them in China, they'll build them in Belgium for the US market, which would avoid those Chinese tariffs. There will still not be any tax credit or anything like that, but at least not 100% tariffs.
Yeah, crazy.
So so EX30 still come to the US and be successful if they are built in Belgium.
Just a different route. And this is kind of something when we went to Europe to check out the EX30, and we're super impressed by it, especially at the price points that they were talking about. It isn't a expensive Volvo. There is, the inside is built inexpensively, but it's a great vehicle, especially at the $35,000 price point that they're talking about. But at the time we were like, how are you going to make this in China and expect to compete with a 25%? At the time it was 25% or 27% or something tariff versus vehicles that are built in the U.S. that are going to not only have no tariff but also get a $7,500 tax credit. And they were like, we can do it. Like
they were not that worried.
They were not that worried at 25%. At 100%, they probably went back and said, oh crap. I don't get why. I mean, they have a plant in South Carolina. They're building the EX90 at it, and they're not. I mean, they've had to. Their original plan was to bring the EX90 to the U.S. from China, and they put the kibosh on that. And that was supposed to happen at the beginning of this year. They're not going to have EX90s until August. I think we're actually going to go to Los Angeles and check that out at the kind of the end of August. So I imagine that the first ones will be delivered around that time. And those are going to be made in South Carolina. I hope that, this Belgium thing is a temporary fix and they are actually spooling up EX30 production at that same plant or some other plant in the US, because why not take advantage of that $7,500 tax credit instead of doubling the price? So,
and it's kind of a chicken and egg situation too, because these smaller vehicles, the sometimes, especially the European automakers, they have no concerns about bringing them to the US and all that. They think US only wants those big vehicles. So now they kind of want to see the demand for it first, which is going to be a little bit more difficult to do with the more expensive version from Belgium. But if the demand is there, maybe that convinced them to do exactly what you just said.
Yeah, I just nobody's trying it, and it's really kind of frustrating because, like, I think there's a lot of people out there who want a hot hatch. I mean, look at all the noise around the Rivian R3. Like, people were kind of losing their mind, and Volvo showed off a off-road version of the EX30 at their event. They have that in the wings. It'll be available in a year in some markets. Like, spool it up in the US. People would love that thing.
Yeah, I agree. All right, still on the subject of getting around the protectionist laws to to sell in the US. Kia is going to build the EV3, which is an interesting, cheap $30,000 vehicle in Mexico to get access to tax credits. So we've talked about the EV3 when it was unveiled this year. Kind of probably a EX30 competitor too. From Kia, and
love it.
That's their plan coming to Mexico. I guess they are betting on Biden winning the election.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't comment on that specifically, but you got to give it to Hyundai Kia. They're really putting out some impressive EVs. I mean, I would say behind Tesla, like the company that's doing the most cool stuff with EVs would probably be the Hyundai Kia consortium.
Yeah, I agree.
They're, in more places, they have the EX9, which kind of competes with the Rivian R1S. They have obviously the EV6, which is kind of one of the better Model Y competitors, although it's more smaller. But then the Hyundai Ioniqs are also pretty cool, and the Ioniq 7's coming out. So there's just a lot of stuff coming from Kia, Hyundai Kia, and I like that. I like that they're going up and down market, not just here's our Model Y competitor.
Yeah, and I like that they're doing different things too. Like this EV3 looks nothing like the EV6, and then that looks nothing like the EV9. So everything is different. I like Kia a lot.
Yep.
But yeah, they're going to Mexico to build the EV3. Then two quick news that we want to discuss real quick about BMW. So BMW confirmed this week that the Series 1 is going to go electric. So it's going to be their entry level, but it's already their entry level vehicle, the ICE lineup, but it's going to be an entry level electric vehicle. So beyond the Mini brand, obviously. They are aiming for the electric Series 1 to come in 2027, followed by the i2, that is also a cheaper electric vehicle, 2028. So BMW has been going a little bit up market first, i7 and iNext and all those stuff. Now the down market has been, they've been taking their time for it. 2027 and 2028 are now the expected date. Those images are the new class sedan and platform that was unveiled. So these vehicles are going to be built on that platform, but don't expect it to look like that.
Those kind of like seem a little muscle car-y.
Yeah. Those are very like early concept for the unveiling of the new electric platform from BMW. Then finally, BMW canceled a $2 billion contract with Northvolt. So Northvolt has been seeing a lot of delays, and BMW has been one of the two main partners for the company. BMW has been one of the two main partners with Volkswagen to Northvolt, but now they have dropped out. So I think they exercised an option to leave the contract because that deal was signed in 2020, and it just they've been behind on the production, so they were able to get out of the contract. Obviously, Northvolt is coming right from where I grew up. They're building a $9 billion factory in Quebec, and it's also a very controversial project because they apparently got an incentive package worth more than the factory itself.
Oh, geez. Well, I guess it's a no-brainer when it costs more than.
Obviously, it's like tax abatement over years and years and years, but still makes no sense to me. All right, let's jump into the comment section.
All right.
50 minutes in.
Let's see. Different time zones, so different commenters. It looks like mostly. Rene Pouliot.
Yeah.
What?
Pouliot.
Okay, Pouliot. In the past, using the accounting average made it possible to quantify vehicles that would be boring and could help the competition. I'm not sure of the context, but he continues. Question, Fred, have you made a decision on the EV you will buy, Rivian or Cybertruck?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to be the Rivian. I'm still holding up though I would like to see the Silverado, because I've been looking like at scooters review, and this week I got into like a little bit of a YouTube rabbit hole of like Silverado videos, and then it is like a very nice truck.
That battery is huge.
Battery is huge, but also just the utility of the back is very cool. Like I like all the the little attention to details of the utility stuff of Silverado. So I was trying to get one to review here, but GM has been they don't have a lot. It looks like in Quebec.
Where's your road trip going to be?
In Quebec and Gaspésie. I tried to get a few from them, but they're like, no, we don't have that. We don't have that. They say that they are working to get me something soon, but they couldn't get one for me in time for the road trip.
Oh, bummer.
So I'm going to go in the Tesla.
All right.
Which is nice. Supercharger and self-driving. Not too bad.
All right. Carl in San Diego, waking up early. Musk is starting to sound like Trump. Oh, yeah, we mentioned that. Desperate and caught up in all his lies about how much he knows. Con man exposed. Okay. Thanks for the show, guys. Big fan. Chat words show interest. All right.
I appreciate that.
All right.
Interactions.
Master plan sounds like master race. Companies usually call that a mission statement. Agree Seth Musk only believes in a humanoid robot because much of what he tries to sell to people is from sci-fi books.
Some cool things have come out of sci-fi books.
Yeah, and some scary things as well. Hopefully the cool things are what we get. And he likes okay. The dilution caused by Elon Musk's compensation package was more than offset by Tesla's performance as each tranche was met. Cost Tesla zero, and shareholders shared in the gain too. Dan Harold is a Elon Musk guy, sounds like.
Yeah, that's cost Tesla zero is literally not true, but
right. All right. Question. Elon said himself that he is over optimistic. He also added that if it was not a lot of his realization wouldn't exist. Do you agree with that? I'll defer to you on that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean. So that if he wasn't so optimistic, things would not have happened. I don't know about that. Like, I think, yeah, there's a time to be optimistic and like to have like grand goals and all that. I agree. But I think Tesla now is like a more mature company, and a lot of resources at hand and all that. I think I think it would be smart to enter kind of an Apple era of work on things in the background, and when they're ready, announce them, bring them to market. This whole idea of like, oh, we're working on self-driving, and it's coming soon, and it's never coming soon. They use this to sell cars. That's my main concern. Like this is a tool that they use to sell cars, and if people are buying those cars with those expectations, you open yourself up to liabilities. And Elon has in the past, he's moved away from saying that, but he has said in the past that all vehicles will achieve level 5 autonomy, and it's becoming pretty clear that that's not going to be the case. Maybe level 4, maybe even not. So this is a liability for Tesla. Now they're gonna have to make it right, and that's gonna cost a lot of money. That's gonna be hard to do, if not impossible. It's just it's not an ideal situation.
Right. All right, we're gonna cut Carl and San Diego off here. Bike Angeles question: shopping for a used Model 3 using the $4,000 EV rebate for standard range 2022 with LFP battery. Is real world range closer to the stated range? 272 EPA equals question mark. Real world range, is LFP more reliable over the lifetime?
Yes, the last question is okay. Degradation, yes, degradation is similar. So on that front, now whether EPA is real range, I mean, it depends on how you drive. Mostly, it depends on what conditions you drive. I know a lot of people that always achieve the EPA range, always beat it, and I know some people that never achieve it, and they're like, "Why I cannot achieve that?" And then I get in the car with them, and they drive 120 on the highway. It's like, of course you want to achieve that. Like that's
Kilometers.
not, yeah. So like right now, I'm good. Like, and I drive fast too. I like to drive fast, and when I can, when I don't care about my range, because I know I'm going to a place where I can easily get to that place and I can charge when I'm there, I'll drive whatever I want to drive. But like, for example, today I'm, driving, 700 or so kilometers. I'm gonna have to charge in between those. So now I'm gonna have to like think a little bit more about how fast I'm driving and all that. But yeah, standard range over 200 miles of range, you're gonna be fine. Bike Angeles, don't worry about it. And there's some good deals to be had with that.
Especially with the 4K
Yeah.
EV rebate. I mean, that might be the $25,000 Tesla we're all hoping for. Now that Tesla has an overcapacity in production, publicity makes perfect sense.
Yep, that's true.
I mean, that's a demand lever, like in the on the high level. I always think about like, why don't they make more colors? Why don't they make more options? I feel like there's a lot of demand levers that Tesla could pull that they haven't yet. And like the colors one is always weird. All right, Dan Harold, Amazon's cloud computing division, Amazon Web Services, is indeed more profitable than its retail operations. If FSD were to fail, I don't see the farm as a waste. Well, then I guess Tesla would have to go back to selling server farm stuff.
Yeah, it's not even like server farm. It's more like it would be like cloud computing services. It wouldn't be exactly like Amazon Web Services, but well, like training, like AI training, like that's where
right. They could sell it to XAI.
Yeah.
I could see that happening.
Oh boy.
All right. Fisker's flameout is representative of a greater challenge for all of them. Remember, they thought they would sell crossovers for 40K. That's been the delusion of most EVs designed 5 years ago.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem with inflation too. Like it's not. I'm sure that Fisker ended up. Their cost prediction were higher than they thought. I think that's clear. But it's also inflation. The timing was not great on that front.
All right. Who will be the first legacy automaker to join Fisker in bankruptcy Valhalla?
Oh, Toyota.
No, that's a big one. I would say maybe Mazda. I don't know. I don't know how they're doing. I don't even know if they're profitable. All right. Companies will actually, Nissan's not doing well. All right, companies will under deliver on low price EVs because they will lose more money on every unit. 30,000 is how much many companies lose on each unit.
That's true.
Yeah. Kia is definitely putting out better EVs than Tesla. Tesla is losing ground because they had an inferior early mover product. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of Tesla drivers who are like, oh man, the model, I got an early Model Y and the doors they didn't sound great. And like I had to take it in. And a lot of Model Ys actually have front suspension issues that Tesla hasn't, they just charge you a lot of money for. They usually go out in about 3 years. I think a lot of people are going to be kind of burned by that. And they're going to be like, you know what, let's go with the legacy auto EV. Like I like the EV part. I like Tesla's charging network, but if I can get, a legacy automaker with a good charging network, it makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Dan Overstay, I hope BMW learned not to use the silly rear doors that only open if you open the front doors. Everybody hates those. He's referring to the i3, and that was kind of dumb. As somebody who had a kid in the back seat and dropping off at school, I had to open the front door for him to get out of the back. When I was testing that thing, I was like, does nobody try this stuff? Like, so
yeah, but this is long gone. I don't think they're coming back with that. Yeah.
No. All right. A couple of weeks ago, you guys discussed how the U.S. presidential election could affect the EV industry in the United States. He continues. Trump has intensified his attacks on EVs specifically and announced policies against the industry. Specifically, Trump could use his policies in the DOT, EPA, courts, etc., to hamstring the IRA. And one example would be crippling the federal EV charging without actually repealing any of the EV charging funding. I think that's it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that there's one one candidate that is more pro EV than the other. I think that's pretty clear.
Yep.
At the very least, he said like all these EVs coming from Mexico. He pretty clearly said that he would be slashing that, not approving that for the tax credit if the tax credit even survive his presidency. So, yeah, I think the U.S. is going to see a step back in the EVs if Trump is elected. I think that's
I mean,
pretty clear.
There was a step back the first time he was elected.
Mm-hmm.
So and he wasn't even like, I don't even think EVs were on his radar.
Yeah, no, he just didn't do it. Like we needed that reform for the tax credit, during his presidency because everyone hit the 200,000. Not everyone, but like Tesla and Tesla was the one that mattered. Obviously, like as soon as Tesla hit it, you slow down Tesla, you slow down the entire industry in the US because that Tesla is the industry in the US, or at least was. So, yeah, it was problematic.
All right, Mr. Turkey Neck, the Silverado's folding middle looks promising. Wish the Cybertruck had one. I don't know if they could build that into the Cybertruck. I mean, with the tonneau cover in there and everything, I don't know.
Yeah, you could have it with it. Well, yeah, the tonneau cover does take a lot of space in that back. Yeah, when it's all folded in, yeah, it makes sense.
Ficio Manuel Omani from Facebook wonders why Mexican-made cars enjoy the U.S. EV tax credits, using U.S. taxpayers' money to pay Mexico. Mexico-made cars should be removed from the tax credits. Thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm for what's going to bring the most EVs as possible. So I'm even against the tariffs on Chinese EVs. To be honest with you, they make sense to bolster the domestic market. I understand the goal of it and everything. Is just I'm more broader mission of like transitioning the world to transport, and if the Chinese can make the cars cheaper. The only thing where I think it does make sense is this: if you go with the idea that China is beating the U.S. because they have a government subsidized company, because they are like they are walking this weird line between communism and capitalism. So I do get that argument, but then you could make the argument that the American government is subsidizing U.S. cars too. Like they've done that for years. They've given like cheap loans. They've done a lot of these things. So I don't know. It's a weird thing.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, I guess, why can China make them so inexpensively, and nowhere else in the world can make them as good as cheaply as China? And
cheaper labor is part of that for sure. So like this idea of like, yeah, you're losing slave labor, which is a stretch. I think now, I think there's a growing middle class in China. Like these jobs are actually good jobs now in China that they have in manufacturing. I think the bigger difference is the manufacturing expertise is there in China. They have this crazy like prison labor. Yeah, there's some of that, and like if when we do find clear evidence of that, like I'm all for the boycotts of those companies. 100% on board with you, Dan, on there. But for the most part, we've seen those Chinese companies, those Chinese factories making electric cars. It's not prison labor. It's good labor. It's just they have a manufacturing expertise that is far beyond what we have in North America.
All right, I think we're coming toward the end. Gandalf says level 4 level 4 not possible without radar or lidar. I mean, I think that remains to be seen. I think at some point, maybe not as soon as Tesla has been saying, but I think you could probably. I mean, like humans, to Elon's argument, is like we are able to do level 5, and all we have is eyes and ears and.
I think that's a good argument because I think that's the best argument because what drives cars right now is the only answer to that is humans. I mean, I've seen some monkeys and some dogs behind the wheels, like they're trying to do, but obviously not to a level that I think will pass a driver's license. No offense to those dogs and monkeys, but. And so the only answer is human, and like you said, humans don't have lidars, they don't have radars, they have eyes and they have a brain. That's what we use to drive a car. So I think that so far that means that would be the route to go. Now that doesn't mean that radar and lidar cannot enhance driving capability of a driver system, but we have no proof of that just yet because no one has achieved it. Or I mean, there's Waymo and all that, but there are geofence system. They have those limitations. Like I do see values in those, so I don't want to diminish them and everything. It's just my only point is like I think that the real future of self-driving is certainly like an autonomous driver that doesn't need to be any like IHD map, just like us. I can drive in my car without any map. I can just get in there, and if I know where I'm going, I'll get there. But I think that's the obvious path to a true self-driving system. That's the long term.
Yep.
Right now, I'm completely on board with geofence stuff. It's super useful.
All right, that's about it for the comments.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening to the show this week. If you do enjoy the show, please give us a thumbs up, a like, a subscribe, whatever it is on the app you're watching. We're live everywhere. If you do listening to the podcast app right now, and we're live on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all that, on any of those, if you can give us a 5-star rating, it helps the show a ton. It helps propagate it to more people, and we get more AV fans out there. So thanks a lot for tuning in early morning. Well, not that early, but not our usual time for the show. And we're going to see you